As you can see, I'm back in the friendly confines of my little studio at home for another weekly installment of previews and predictions. And we're just going to jump right into it without any prolonged intro, since I have to go get some physical therapy because I can't do this. I can't do, you know the number 3? You know that? Look at my finger here. I can't get my thumb over my pinky. I can't do it with this one either. And then look at my ring fingers. What is going on with my hands? I've got no flexibility, no range of motion. It's driving me insane. I actually think it's a nerve issue. A doctor noticed that many years ago, and I think it's just getting progressively worse. And now I've just prolonged the intro because I'm an idiot. Oh, also, I have a special surprise at the end of this video as well, but that will be after the 5 matchups that I will definitely be watching this weekend, starting with number 5, the San Jose Earthquakes versus the Sporting Kansas City Wizards, also known as the former clubs of Jimmy Conrad Derby. And how do I say this? One of these teams is not like the other. Since San Jose is the worst team in all of MLS this season and is already officially knocked out of the playoffs with 8 games to go, which means in an alternate universe, they would be on the cusp of being relegated, which means if they're looking for a new coach next season, they could do worse than this guy. I'm just saying. While Kansas City is currently the 5th best team overall after 27 games, but the 3rd best in goal difference and 2nd in the Western Conference, and they look to be peaking at just the right time, which will be very important because after winning MLS Cup in 2013, they haven't got past the first round of the playoffs for 4 consecutive seasons, so it is a must for them to keep up their current form, which, if I didn't mention it already, they've won 5 out of their last 6 games. But things can get tricky coming out of an international break. You can lose some of that momentum of your current form. Plus, the players on San Jose have nothing to play for, so they have no pressure on one hand, but we could argue that they're playing for their jobs for next season, which means I think they'll be hungry on this hand, and I feel like when you combine those two things, that makes them a really dangerous opponent. So I'm gonna say 2-2. And you knew I was gonna say a draw. I can't pick a winner out of my former clubs, no matter what their seasons are looking like. And next up, it's Athletic Bilbao versus Real Madrid, and let's start here. Even though you might think otherwise, I am not a hater of Real Madrid. I never have been, and I never will be, especially since I once signed a 1-day contract with the club. Do you remember that? Well, take a look at this to refresh your memory. So I'm signing my 1-day contract with Real Madrid. Just gonna make this official. I did have an issue though, maybe a 2-day contract. I played in the 06 World Cup with the US.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I know.
You know?
I know.
Hopefully you think I'm good.
I know.
Yeah. That was a pretty cool experience. However, I do wonder just how good they are this season because when they were tested like they were in the UEFA Super Cup against Atletico Madrid, they lost. But since then, they've scored 10 goals and won all 3 of their league games, which is great, right? Especially without the great Cristiano Ronaldo in their team anymore. But then I realized that they've only played Girona and Getafe and Leganes, which means going to the San Mamés Stadium in Bilbao, a place where they created very little last season in their 0-0 draw, is going to be their first real test in La Liga this season, especially since Bilbao looks rejuvenated under new manager Eduardo Berizzo. Also, Bilbao didn't play the week before the international break. This is a fun fact for you because Rayo Vallecano Stadium was unfit to play in or something. So you add in that extra rest for Bilbao, while most of Madrid's players played 2 games during the international break, and the fact that Madrid also have to keep in their minds that their first Champions League group game is a few days after this one against Roma. Of all the teams they could have played first, they had to draw the hardest one in their group. And I just think that maybe Bilbao, despite some of Madrid's top players in good form, like Gareth Bale, who looks sharp for Wales, and Marco Asensio, who was the man for Spain, could pull something out here. So I'm gonna say 1-1. And now let's head to Germany for our weekly check-in to see if anyone can beat Super Bayern Munich, so it'll make the Bundesliga interesting this season. And this week's challenger to Bayern's throne is Bayer Leverkusen, who have lost their first 2 games of the season and are tied for last, which is not good, while Bayern sit on top of the table and have to decide whether they should start James Rodriguez or Leon Goretzka over Thomas Muller or Thiago Alcantara in this game, which must be a great f***ing problem to have, right? I mean, Jesus, these guys are stacked. But in fairness to Leverkusen, they did have some key guys hurt to start the season, including one of the top goalkeepers in all of the Bundesliga last season, Lukas Hradecky. I think I said that right, kinda maybe. An experienced center back Sven Bender, so their defense should be tougher to break down than it was in their 2 losses to Borussia Mönchengladbach and Wolfsburg. However, this game is at the Allianz Arena and Bayern haven't lost to Leverkusen in 7 consecutive games in all competitions. So even though it would be cool to see Bayern drop some points to add some intrigue to the top division in Germany, I just don't see it happening. I mean, can you see it happening? I think, honestly, they could beat Leverkusen with 9 players. I really do. Okay, fine. that might be a little disrespectful. Let's say they could do it with 10 players. Either way, Bayern is gonna win this one quite easily. I'm gonna say 3-1. Also, before we move on to the next matchup, could you imagine if Bayern or PSG were like, listen, our domestic leagues are too easy, so we are now going to attempt something that has never been done before and see if we can win the league by only starting 10 players every single week. I mean, where do you think they would finish? I'm gonna say 5th or 6th. Is that too high? I don't think it is for how talented they are, but what a concept this is. I want a team to try it. And now let's go to Italy for Napoli versus Fiorentina, which in my humble opinion should be a revenge match for Napoli since the last time that both of these teams met back in the league in April, Fiorentina delivered a crushing blow to Napoli's title hopes last season with a decisive 3-0 win. Napoli have given up 6 goals in their 3 Serie A games this season, and I'm gonna write this down, while Fiorentina have scored 7 goals in their 2 games. So by my math, Fiorentina should score 2.75 goals in this one. Given that they're in one of the toughest groups in the Champions League, Napoli are coming into this game against Fiorentina knowing that they must win in Belgrade over Red Star a few days later if they want to significantly boost their chances of getting to the knockout rounds, which means they can't drop any points in Belgrade. So we could see Ancelotti rest a few guys against Fiorentina to make sure that they're ready for the middle of the week. It's being reported that Napoli have sold less than 10,000 tickets for this game due to a doubling of the ticket prices, which is just what kind of business is that? So you have to feel like a relatively empty stadium will affect the home team who can't afford to drop points in the league either if they want to keep up with Juventus. So overall, just some tough early days of the season for Napoli on a lot of fronts, and I don't think it's going to get any easier in this one because I love Fiorentina's team this season. Marco Benassi, Giovanni Simeone, Federico Chiesa, Gerson, they're young, they're hungry, they're ambitious, and I think they're going to pull off the minor upset 3-2. Finally, the last matchup that I will 100% be watching this weekend, along with all the others that I've mentioned, it's Tottenham versus Liverpool. And yes, I know some of you wanted me to say Watford versus Manchester United, but I really believe that the international break will benefit United more than Watford, who seem more like a team that runs on confidence and momentum. Whereas with United, because they are so talented, they can turn it on and off when they want. Not that they should, because they do turn it off at times, but they just have that much talent. Also, I just think that United players being able to step away and get a break from the constant scrutiny to go away with their countries will do that team a whole world of good. So I expect United to beat Watford 2-1. Anyway, back to the game I wanted to focus on. It is the start of a crazy-ass 7-game run for Liverpool over the next 3 weeks. I mean, check this out. First, they take on Spurs at Wembley, a place where they lost 4-1 last season. Then they play PSG at Anfield in the Champions League. Then they take on their B team, Southampton, in the league. Then 2 games against Chelsea, 1 in the Carabao Cup. I think that's what it is, right? The EFL Carabao Cup, and 1 in the league, back to back. That's going to be fun. And then a trip to Napoli, and then finally at home against Manchester City in the league. So if they can somehow, some way survive this stretch and get 4 or 5 wins and a couple draws along the way, they could really set themselves up for success later in the season. But this is a big ask of any team this early in a campaign, even for a team like Liverpool, who already had an established core of great players, while also adding some more over the summer. Now, as for Spurs, they've got a few issues. Well, 2 to be exact, and 1 is good and 1 is bad. But let's start with the good first, and that is Heung-min Son is finally coming back in the team. After very successful Asian Games winning the gold and doing nasty megs that go viral during the international break as captain of South Korea, Ronaldo is finally an option for Spurs' manager Mauricio Pochettino. So the good issue here is that Lucas Moura has been playing in Ronaldo's spot while he was gone, and Lucas Moura has been playing really well. So it'll be interesting to see how Pochettino finds room for everyone, though he won't have to worry about it in this game, which leads me to my bad issue. And that is, Dele Alli and Hugo Lloris are both hurt. However, with Ronaldo back, he can fill in for Dele Alli, which will continue to keep Lucas Moura happy and on the field. But with Lloris hurt, Michael Vorm steps in, and that is a big problem for Spurs because he's an okay backup, but not a great one. So I fully expect Liverpool to test him all game long, as they should, because he's going to make a mistake or two, or not make a save or two that he should make. And Liverpool, who are very familiar with these types of goalkeepers since they had 2 of them on their team last season, should be looking to take full advantage of this advantage. Plus, we have to remember that Spurs travel to Milan to face Inter, while Liverpool get to stay home to take on PSG midweek. So man, there's just a lot going on, and a lot to think about, and a lot to take into consideration, especially the part where there's only been 1 goalless draw between these 2 teams since 2012, and 14 goals between them in their last 4 matches. But without Lloris, and I know he's only 1 player on a team of 11, but he's such an important piece to Spurs' puzzle, I think Liverpool are going to do the business 3-1. And all right, that is it. That is all I got, except for these 2 things. 1, predict the right score for Spurs versus Liverpool, and you'll be entered to win a Warm Baller starter kit, and I will announce let's say 3 winners next Monday, along with the 2 winners who picked the right score for England versus Spain last weekend. I didn't forget about you. You probably thought that I did, but I didn't. And 2, just because the people demanded it yesterday and I failed to deliver, roll the clip.
Number 4 for the United States. Lennon sends it in, the header, and it's into the back of the net. The United States strikes, and it's Jimmy Conrad.